Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Business Gateway's latest webinar, The Pathway to Net Zero Insights and Strategies for Your Business in what is Net Zero Week. So quite appropriate we should be doing this at this time. Net Zero Week obviously dedicated to addressing critical environmental issues. So while we are giving folk a chance to get into the webinar, because it takes a wee bit of time to get in through the registration, I'm just going to cover a wee bit of housekeeping first, just to let everyone know that this session will be recorded, made available later. Everyone has been placed on mute to avoid any background noise. You can submit questions through the portal, please do. We will try and get to as many of those as we can as part of the discussion. And if there's anything that we don't cover during the discussion that you're interested to know more about, there will be a follow-up, and you can obviously contact Business Gateway directly. So as I say, welcome to this latest webinar. I am delighted to have an expert panel with us today to talk about these kinds of issues of net zero and the pathway to net zero. So I'm joined today by Alasdair Mitchell, who's founder and chief executive of Ocean Plastic Pots, Eva Rainey, who's assistant program manager at Business Energy Scotland, and Lauren Ridgley, who's the project officer at Edinburgh Chamber of Commerce. So I think probably best and the first thing we need to do is find out a wee bit more about our panelists and what they're doing. Alasdair, can I come to you first?
Yeah, no problem. Good morning, everybody. My name's Ali Mitchell. I founded a company called Ocean Plastic Pots 3 years ago. We make and manufacture sustainable plant pots and other products in Scotland from 100% rope and fishing net. What that really means is that we identify and recycle waste polypropylene and high density polyethylene plastic streams. We collect that from various sources, including our own collection programs and from beaches mainly. And then we recycle it in the UK and we manufacture in Scotland and turn it back into a product, creating a circular economy.
Brilliant. Thanks, Alasdair. You okay with me calling you Ali then?
Yeah. Only my mother calls me Alasdair kind of these days.
Okay, that's your Sunday name then. Okay, Eva.
Okay.
Hi there, I'm Eva Rainey. I am the Assistant Programme Manager at Business Energy Scotland. For anyone who hasn't heard of us, we are a completely free and impartial service provided by the Scottish Government to provide impartial support and advice to businesses, particularly SMEs in Scotland who want to save energy, carbon and money. Our service is provided through a team of business energy advisors that cover the whole of Scotland, and we have a support network of consultancies that provide technical expertise on projects where we need them. The purpose of our service is to help businesses firstly identify where they could be making savings, and from there supporting them to implement those changes and realise the savings.
Brilliant. Thanks, Eva. And Lauren.
Hello everyone, I'm Lauren Ridgley. I work at the Edinburgh Chamber of Commerce. So Edinburgh Chamber is a membership organisation for businesses within Edinburgh, and we support them through a wide range of activities to help them grow and achieve success. And I work on the projects team, specifically on the sustainability project, supporting businesses with sustainability more broadly, but also on their net zero journey.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Lauren. As I was saying earlier, that we are doing this particular webinar in what is Net Zero Week. And Net Zero Week, what's it about? Is aiming to raise awareness of the importance of addressing these issues and giving individuals the knowledge to collectively contribute to the global movement towards a greener and more resilient world. But navigating the path to net zero and implementing sustainability practices can undoubtedly seem like a daunting task, especially for small businesses. So hopefully today with our panel, we can really guide you a wee bit on that journey to net zero emissions. So let's kick off. We've got a few discussion points here, and as I was saying earlier, I know a few more folk have joined us on the webinar. If you have a question, please put it into the portal. We will try and get to it. So first question to our panel. In your view, why is achieving net zero emissions crucial for businesses and society as a whole? And what are the key benefits that can be realised by embracing that goal? And I'm going to come to Alasdair first.
So in terms of society as a whole, net zero basically means that we've committed to reducing our greenhouse gas emissions by 100%. To do that, UK has a high resilience on fossil fuels, which emits CO2. We've just come off the back of the warmest month on record. So global warming is real. I think for the last two weeks, I never left the house without a jacket. And so we are seeing the real effects of global warming. To combat that, what we have to do is reduce our CO2 emissions and our reliance on fossil fuels, while then also maximising how we use the land in order to reduce carbon via alternative farming techniques and new technologies like carbon capture. The benefits for businesses as a whole is we first and foremost have to look at our own supply chains. You have to really take stock and have a deep look at your business. If you're not a startup, it's a bit easier to do actually. If you are a startup company, because you're starting from scratch, which is what we did. But if you're an existing business, you have to look at your existing supply chains. We actually did a CO2 impact assessment with the Scottish Government, and there's a lot of schemes like that you can take part in. And once you've analysed your supply chain and look at where your business generates its most CO2, that's when you can start to really, and that has an impact on your business as well, because you'll start to realise that there might be cost savings generated with finding a new supplier that's based in Scotland as opposed to being based overseas. And so that's where the real key, I think, are for Scottish businesses.
Okay, thanks, Ali. Lauren.
I think that becoming net zero is crucial for both society and business. I always say to businesses, we only have the one planet, and how you operate as a business relies on the land, it relies on the resources available. And so we really have to kind of work together, both as citizens and businesses, to kind of start that journey to becoming net zero, because I think, as Ali said, the impacts of climate change, we're seeing it more now, and to really reduce the kind of catastrophic impacts that we're having on the climate, we are going to have to start on that net zero journey. And for us talking to businesses, it's about getting businesses to understand the benefits it can be to your business to start that net zero journey, not just kind of environmentally to reduce your carbon emissions, but actually it can have other benefits. For example, you could have increase your resilience, as Ali said, to kind of differences in the market going forward. We are now seeing kind of a greater interest in customers asking businesses what they're doing in terms of their environmental policies and on that net zero journey. So getting ahead of the game and showing your customers that you do care and that you are taking action can really help you. And looking at kind of and taking stock, as Ali said, of what your business is doing operationally, kind of where waste streams are, it can really and putting actions into place can kind of help reduce costs for businesses, and that's what we've seen through the work that we do. So I think it's really about just kind of getting people to understand that it doesn't always have to be kind of only environmental benefits. As a whole, it's about really kind of working together and kind of taking hold of all the opportunities that becoming net zero can bring.
Thanks, Lauren. Eva, from Business Energy Scotland's point of view, what's your take on this?
Yeah, lots of great points raised already, and I can only stand to echo them. I suppose when you think about what the future would look like without net zero, the world's already heated up by 1.1 degrees Celsius, and we're on track for warming of at least 3 degrees this century because emissions are continuing to rise. And the science behind it is that it's going to be ever worsening. Extreme weather events you can look at globally, but even on a local scale, the weather in the past few months has been so unpredictable and unusual for this time of year. It's really starting to hit home for everyone. From my perspective, SMEs make up about 99% of all businesses in Scotland. They make a considerable contribution, particularly those in certain industries, to the emissions reaching the atmosphere. And we're at a point now where the cost of making buildings energy efficient and installing renewable technologies can seem like a barrier, but there is a lot of support out there, whether that's advice or funding. And given current fuel prices being so volatile, a lot of these improvements will pay for themselves much faster than they would have done historically. From a business perspective as well, if we create energy efficient workplaces, they make for happier, healthier, more comfortable working environments. And a lot of us spend more time at work than we do anywhere else. So having that carbon friendly environment and reducing pollution benefits everyone. And another point that was raised earlier, consumers, I think, now are very conscious of where they spend their money, and they do have expectations that businesses will operate sustainably. So part of that's about the bottom line. The other part of it's about reputation and credentials. And yeah, the benefits, I think, speak for themselves.
Right. Thanks, Eva. Ali, you said when you were answering there about global warming, and Eva, you're talking there about temperature rises, but I pick up from the media this kind of impression that folk are saying, well, is it global warming, is that the right way to be described, or is it climate change? What's the kind of language we need to be using here that really gets people inspired and thinking about it? Is it about global warming? Is it climate change? Just what's your thoughts on that? Is language a barrier to all of this? Ali?
I think the term probably should be climate change, because as much as the Earth is heating up, that volatility creates a lot harsher winters.
Yeah.
Time when fuel costs are higher. So for the consumer, it's difficult to discuss global warming in a practical sense during the winter. So
yeah,
climate change is probably the more practical.
Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts from Lauren or Eva on that?
I do think that defining what net zero is, what climate change is for citizens and businesses is kind of that educational piece is really important for them to kind of understand what it is and how that might impact their business or how it relates to their business in that way. And so we've done a lot of work in kind of just getting businesses to understand what net zero is principally, and then how it could then impact their business. So I do think that kind of that education piece and it is really important.
Okay. Eva?
Yeah, I would again agree with the points raised. I think perhaps we need to use more substantial, more not threatening language, but climate crisis to me is the kind of language that I think we need to use, just to really make sure everyone's aware that this is not something that's really optional. The negative impacts will take place. All we can control at this point is how rapidly that happens, and we are in a time of crisis, so I think the language needs to be a little bit more firm, in my opinion, to get that message across.
Okay, that's really helpful. Net zero encompasses a lot of messages. There's a lot of information out there, from reducing emissions, you touched on that, Eva, to introducing sustainable practices to achieving carbon neutrality. For business owners who perhaps feel overwhelmed, who feel unsure, where should they start? I'll come to Eva first on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that sounds like self-promotion, but I would say Business Energy Scotland for many reasons. The first of which being we're completely impartial, backed up by the fact that we're free, and we can help at any stage in the journey. We might have someone who has an oven-ready project, they've got a quote, they want to go ahead, they perhaps just need someone to quantify those savings and help provide them with the assistance they need to access funding. That's fine, but we also get lots of inquiries from businesses who don't know where to start. They just know that the bills are increasing threefold, and if they don't take action, then the business might not be salvageable. So we can help at any stage in that process to talk through their current consumption, both in terms of carbon emissions and their financial spend, and then help to suggest options for them whereby they can make improvements. We'll give them projected costs, savings in all different formats, and then help enable them to move forward and get quotes and take action. So for me, have someone there who can break down all of this language and all of the messaging, focus specifically on your business because they are so vast and so different. I could be dealing with a newsagent one day, a steel fabricator the next day, a textiles manufacturing plant. It's so vast, and you need that personalised support. And I can't think of many other places that you could go to get that for free and know that it is completely impartial with the view of helping you take action. So that would be my first step, is get in touch with Business Energy Scotland.
Good, thanks, Eva. Lauren?
Yeah, I would echo what Eva is saying in terms of it can feel really overwhelming, especially for an SME who someone is doing this on top of everything else that they have to do on the day-to-day basis. They don't have the resource, a dedicated resource to kind of debunk all the kind of language and what data they might need. And so businesses like Eva's organizations, but also kind of the chamber, I spend a lot of time working with businesses to kind of almost take stock of what their business looks like in terms of, so what is your energy consumption on a monthly basis? You know, what waste streams do you have? So kind of just kind of creating a mini report so they can kind of see it all on one page. That's what we do. And then from there, work with organizations or speak to people kind of like us to kind of help you then see where opportunities are for you to improve energy efficiency within your business. But I would say for businesses that I think, you know, there's a lot of buzzwords around becoming net zero, but actually looking at those kind of low-hanging fruits, the kind of easier wins that I say, and Eva, you might see this as well, kind of the easier wins is kind of a bit more is better for businesses, especially SMEs. So, you know, looking at lighting, for example, energy efficiency in machinery is a little bit easier than telling them to create or calculate a baseline and a carbon reduction plan. So kind of working slowly on actions. There is a crisis, but I think there's, you know, it's not a marathon to get to net zero strategy. It might take a little while, and that is okay, because ultimately you do also have to run a business. So I would say focus on low-hanging fruits, engage with organisations like Eva's and the chambers, who can kind of help you, direct you to kind of more expert advice, etc., to help you start that net zero journey.
Thanks, Laura. And you make a really good point about SME owners, people in business. They are time poor, and this is a, you know, another thing on top of all the things they're doing. Totally get that. You talk there about the low-hanging fruit. I mean, I recall a few years ago now running a program which was looking at energy efficiency in businesses and trying to identify what we were talking about at the time was, first of all, the no-cost savings. What could they do to save on energy and save on the environment at no cost, which could then be applied to the savings that they'd identified where there was a low cost, there was a bit of a cost, but the savings generated could then be used for that. And then what were the high cost savings? And again, just finessing everything towards trying to actually address the problem. So we're talking there about where business owners should start on that kind of journey for net zero. Ali, I'm going to come to you. I mean, as the founder of Ocean Plastic Pots, it would be really interesting to get your take on how should somebody start, particularly since you've done it. Sure. What inspired you to start a business as well would be interesting to understand that addressed the ocean waste issue and promoted circular economy.
It was a personal experience. My background is commercial diving. For anybody who doesn't know, I was a diver in the North Sea. I used to work all over the world, progressed to saturation diving, and then on the first day of lockdown, 2020 in April, a cargo ship ran aground north of the Isle of Skye with 2,000 tonnes of plastic on board, and I was asked to join the salvage operation working for HM Coast Guard as a diver. We ended up spending 6 weeks diving in waste plastic every day. My grandparents are from the Outer Hebrides, and it was the first time I'd ever seen somewhere that I loved threatened by such catastrophic waste on such a large scale, and that was the inspiration. That was the moment, really. I used to work out at Peterhead, and every time we came into port, we used to put a ton of blue rope in a skip, and blue rope is polypropylene, which is the same material as a black plastic plant pot. And I had this sort of light bulb idea: why don't we turn this waste material that goes in the skip into plant pots? And that's where the idea came from, basically. It's very difficult to recycle a black plastic plant pot because of the colour, and all our waste streams are non-black. So that was the defining moment, really. I then came home, spent 6 months trying and failing miserably to make a plant pot from rope and fishing net. I had another business and we invested in some moulding and tooling equipment, and the business grew from there. We launched the first product that we made ourselves at Leith Market, and we went from Leith Market to the shelves of Waitrose in 20 months. In that process, we made 2 pots in-house, and then from there, what we actually do is we design and manufacture injection moulding tooling, which sits under custody with factories. And then we identify and manage the waste streams, give the waste streams to the factory and manufacture a product. As a startup company, I couldn't morally do all of that and then outsource it to overseas manufacturing. On a personal level, I just couldn't do it. And we were working, we launched the business around COVID time, where the high street took a massive hit. Nobody knew if anybody had any businesses to come back to. And it felt like I wanted to do something that made a direct improvement to Scotland and the Scottish coastline, and I couldn't do that and then outsource the manufacturing. So we sourced the manufacturing in Scotland. We've now got 2 manufacturing partners. And then there are different recyclers around the world, but we work with the only recycler in the UK. And so that gives us a very, very small footprint. From taking a waste material off a beach to recycling it to our warehouse, it's 426 miles, road miles. Whereas if you were to manufacture a plant pot in China and ship it in, it's 12,000 nautical miles powered by a diesel-powered cargo ship. So that's where the real, CO2 emissions are saved. Having said that, we did a CO2 impact assessment of our business. When you recycle a material, there's obviously a massive saving in terms of using an old material relative to a virgin material made from fossil fuels. But the recycling process itself gives off CO2 emissions. It uses energy. And so we have looked at ways to counteract that as well. Likewise, water usage. So there's a cleaning process within recycling. That's a closed loop system with filters. And so even the way that we sort our material protects those filters and reduces energy. And then sort of going on, we've looked at our packaging suppliers. So all our packaging is 100% recycled, is actually manufactured and printed in Glasgow. That gives us, once again, a really small footprint. And it's become so entrenched within our business that it's second nature now. We just don't really think about it. But it gives you opportunities as well. So we've just launched a new product, which is a garden tool, and it's got a handle made from ocean plastic. But that ocean plastic, that product came about because when we recycle 1 ton of rope and fishing net, we've done 25 tons of Scottish waste so far. When you run one colour into the next, you get 1,000. If you put in 1,000 tons of yellow, you'll get 980 tons out, and you'll get 20 kilos in between where the colours mix together. And if you ran that through our commercial moulds, you would generate grey. And so we've kept this to one side. Likewise, when you do a manufacturing run, you get offcuts. So we all had all these small bags of material, 50 kilos, 20 kilos, 30 kilos. And so that waste from the waste has gone into a new series of garden tools. And we manufacture that in-house. But that's a raw material that's effectively free because it's already been paid for. And so it's opportunities like that for small businesses that are really exciting.
Yeah. Sounds absolutely, as a keen gardener, sounds even more fascinating. I'm going to have to look out for these things now.
Well, all the cast of the Beechgrove Garden have now got them, so I'm hoping
Brilliant
on the next show. But yeah,
brilliant, super. So where are these available? On a personal note, where might we find these things?
We're about to put them online, oceanplasticpots.com.
Brilliant, super. So just from the perspective of getting started there and thinking about where should somebody start, did you get any advice or assistance or help from anybody specific or any specific organisations?
Yeah, we actually won Scottish Edge. That was the first business.
Right.
We won Scottish Edge round 17 and been mentored by Scottish Edge for the last 2 years. We were also part of an Unlocking Ambition cohort 3, which is part of Scottish Enterprise. And then we've worked with our local business gateway in East Renfrewshire. We probably now work most closely with Circular Economy Glasgow and the Glasgow Chamber. But we've got links to all these organisations and the support network there.
Super.
Once you
No,
start
really
with
good.
a business in Scotland, it's a very small place, and you start to see the same faces and get to know each other.
Yeah, no, Scottish Edge is a fantastic initiative to help young businesses. So really good. That's really good. Okay, let's move on a wee bit. Business Energy offers Green Champion training. What is this, and why should Scottish businesses become CPD certified? Eva?
Yeah, Green Champions training is offered by Business Energy Scotland. As you've mentioned, it is CPD accredited and it's completely free and hosted online. The course was designed to give people all the skills and tools that they need to successfully improve the resource efficiency and the environmental performance of their organisation, which, as we know, will save money as well. All of the content has been written by resource efficiency experts, and the trainers are business energy advisors from the Business Energy Scotland team. It packs in loads of information and it's very accessible to people who perhaps aren't familiar with the processes and the language. You very quickly get to grips with all of that, and the idea is you'll go off after the training and be able to identify cost and environmental improvement opportunities. You'll be able to effectively collect and analyse your data and ultimately be able to bring about change. The course is delivered in 3 parts. So there's a 2-hour online training session, which is hosted by ourselves. And then there are independent online modules, which are completed by anyone who wants to become a Green Champion. The foundation modules are introductory and they introduce you to the threats and things that are driving Scottish businesses to be more resource efficient, and then step by step take you through the process of making your own organisation more resource efficient. Each module takes about 10 to 15 minutes to complete. You can do them separately, you can dip in and do them in order, or whenever you feel like looking at specific modules. And once you complete those modules, a certificate would then be awarded. There are further practical modules which provide more training on different skills and techniques. You can learn about specific energy efficiency improvements and renewable technologies. And there are advanced modules as well, which help you bring about further change in your organisation. I think someone mentioned earlier on, most SMEs aren't in the fortunate position of having someone who can work full-time in a sustainability role, managing utilities and all of that. So if you have people in the organisation that are interested in development, this is a great thing to channel them towards. They'll develop skills which will ultimately be kept in-house and bring benefit to the business. And it's all completely free of charge and accredited as well. So it's something that you can offer to staff to support them with their own development.
And thanks, Eva. A really useful resource for people to be thinking about. Great. Lauren, can I come to you? How can local chambers of commerce play a role in supporting businesses in their journey towards net zero emissions?
I think the local chambers can play a key role. Ali, you've highlighted the Glasgow Chamber of Commerce there. Because of our network, I think sometimes, as you've said, it can feel very overwhelming for the SMEs. They're not sure where to start. So actually getting in touch, engaging with your local Chamber of Commerce can be really beneficial for businesses. One, to understand kind of where support is available. So if the chamber can't provide support, then they can direct people to organisations like Eva's Energy Business Scotland. But also, I think the real benefit of a chamber is also to kind of connect businesses together. Making those connections kind of brings about opportunities. I always say kind of one man's waste is another man's gold, and I spend a lot of time kind of connecting businesses together to see if there are opportunities for a business to use a waste stream that is otherwise going to end up in landfill, and kind of creating that kind of network so you can kind of share best practice. You can speak to people, ask them about challenges that you're facing that lots of other businesses have probably faced before. So engaging with the chamber, kind of engaging with that network can be really beneficial for businesses. And also chambers can also direct you to kind of any funding opportunities there may be within the network and within Scotland or the UK. So yeah, engage with your local chamber because we're here to help.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Lauren. Even just you made me think about something there. Obviously, most recently, we've had, well, we had the financial crash in 2008, we had austerity, we then had COVID, then we had the energy crisis. Did that trigger a significant increase, that's most recent aspect, the cost of energy, did that trigger an upsurge in businesses coming to Business Energy Scotland?
Absolutely, yep. I mean, it's great to have people coming to us. Historically, we would have gone out and done a lot of outreach, delivered a lot of events. At the moment, we are inundated with inquiries, and the priority is to support businesses. We've been incredibly busy. We've upped the number of advisors that we have in the team. We've upped the number of administrative staff to support us with this. We've developed new work streams in-house to channel people with specific improvements in mind, whose project is a little bit closer to completion, to go down certain avenues, just so that we can make that process more efficient, and then help people who do need more support to start from the beginning and analyse their fuel consumption and then identify opportunities. But certainly, yes, we've been much busier in the past, I would say, 6 to 12 months than we have been ever.
Yeah, no, that's understandable, and obviously presents challenges for your organisation in responding to that. Just a wee reminder to our audience that there is an opportunity to post questions on the portal if you have any, and we will obviously try and get to those as we work our way through the webinar content. So just a wee reminder of that. Okay, so Lauren, just you've touched there on people coming to Chambers of Commerce for assistance. Are there any specific resources or initiatives offered by Edinburgh Chamber to help businesses implement sustainable practices?
Yes, so we used to run a circular economy project within the city, supporting businesses understanding what circular economy is, and off the back of that, we kind of wanted to deliver a project that kind of had a more broader umbrella in terms of net zero. So at the start of this year, the Edinburgh Chamber got funding through the UK Shared Prosperity Fund and via the City of Edinburgh Council to deliver the Net Zero Edinburgh project. So the project really aims to support SMEs within Edinburgh, kind of participate in kind of the just transition to a net zero economy, helping them understand what net zero is, helping them understand kind of what opportunities there are for their business, but also opportunities to implement actions and processes and policies that would help them reduce their carbon emissions and ultimately get them on that net zero journey. The City of Edinburgh Council has set a very ambitious target to become net zero by 2030, and so we really feel that we have a role to kind of support businesses within the city to help the city become net zero by 2030. So there's a whole range of support that we can provide, events such as these, highlighting kind of what case studies like Ali, kind of what businesses are already doing, how they've done it, sharing best practice, mentoring. We also offer kind of 2 hours of free consultancy in terms of helping businesses start calculating a baseline for their carbon emissions for scope 1 and 2. And we will be running a cohort for a limited number of businesses to really help them with that scope 3, that kind of broader kind of scope, and helping them kind of write a plan and a strategy and help them start implementing. So like Eva, we are completely funded. It is completely free for businesses. So please get in touch if you do have any questions. And we regularly kind of direct people to Business Energy Scotland, for more kind of expert knowledge on kind of helping calculate kind of electric vehicles or kind of heat pumps, etc. So we are here to kind of support SMEs throughout that journey, not just that one meeting, but to support them throughout the 2 years that the project is running. And so please do get in touch if you're interested.
Brilliant. Thanks, Lauren. You mentioned there case studies, and a really important part of what the Business Gateway service does is promoting the people, businesses who we work with the case studies of what they've done, what they've achieved, and that's a big part of taking our message to businesses in Scotland about what the art of the possible is. And as I say, you've touched on that there. I guess, Eva, just thinking about that a wee bit more widely, significant increase in businesses coming to you. Do you have a portfolio of case studies that Business Energy Scotland has that's, I'm thinking here, successful case studies, obviously, where businesses have made progress in reducing their carbon footprint through energy efficiency measures? Do you have that?
Yeah, absolutely. We promote case studies often on our website. Everyone that we engage with who goes on to take action is asked afterwards for feedback on the experience and if they would be happy to participate in a case study. And we usually have a very good uptake on that. I have a few that I can share after the event. I can share the link to where you can find those examples on our website. And just before that, another great thing that we can do if a business is thinking about making a certain improvement or taking steps to engage with Business Energy Scotland, we can connect them with other similar businesses who've agreed to share their details so that they can hear firsthand what that experience was like. Although we are completely impartial and that has huge benefits, sometimes you do want to hear something from someone who's been there and done it before, who is partial, for want of a better description. So we'll certainly share all of that afterwards. As an example, I can tell you a little bit about Stewart Brewing through in Loanhead. I was a brewer before I worked at Business Energy Scotland, so that case was particularly interesting to me, given my experience in the industry. And right now there are innumerate challenges for brewers with the cost of energy, raw material prices increasing. Lots of them have been struggling to keep afloat. I think it was about 45 small breweries closed in the UK last financial year, which was up from 15 the year before, which speaks for itself. Stewart Brewing, with all those challenges in mind, got in touch with ourselves. They have a 5-day-a-week brewing operation. They supply beers all across Edinburgh and central Scotland. I'm sure most of you have seen them out and about, and they've got an online shop as well. They engaged with Business Energy Scotland to find out how viable a solar photovoltaic system would be to generate some of their own electricity on the roof of their south-facing building. Transpired that was a suitable improvement. We produced a report from our consultants which gave them an indication of the costs and the savings, and they decided to go ahead and access an interest-free loan to take that forward and do the work. They're very invested in supporting the environment and trying to minimise their carbon footprint, so solar power was always a consideration for them. But the kind of crucial point came when their energy costs went up from 66,000 a year to over £300,000 per year. That was the trigger point where they knew we need to get in touch and get some help. Our survey included not just the brewery, but also looked at their bar, their pizza kitchen. Someone went out on site and physically inspected the area to be able to make these recommendations. We recommended solar, which they've gone ahead with. We also recommended an air source heat pump to provide underfloor heating and hot water. They weren't ready to go ahead with the heat pump. That required a few other considerations, but they've already installed the solar and they're seeing benefits from that already. And yeah, just a great example of the kind of support that's available for businesses that's on a fairly big scale. To give you an example, briefly on a smaller scale, we've got MC Stores in Girvan, just a small retailer who engaged with us. Again, had a surveyor come out, provide recommendations, and they were able to save over £4,000 a year on their energy bills and obviously increase their environmental performance as well. They access funding for LED lighting, refrigeration units, and a new ventilation system. All of those improvements, they were offered a 75% grant towards, which was a great motivator for them to go ahead and take action. So yeah, a couple of examples on different ends of the scale there. There are lots available on the website, and I'll give you the links to that afterwards.
That's super. Thanks for that, Eva. I thought for a moment there on the Stewart's one, you were going to say that somebody had gone out on site to do sampling, but I'm sure other people have
done that. It sounds like a perk of the job, but from experience, the novelty of it definitely wears off.
There we go. So, and we have, obviously, Ali, you gave us a super oversight earlier there of your journey and how you have done you have done, and you are, in essence, a very much a live case study with us today. In your journey, what challenges and opportunities have you encountered while establishing and growing a business that is very much focused on sustainability?
Probably the biggest challenge starting is always price effectively, in that as a new business, you can't do the same volumes as your big competitors, so you're going to be more expensive. Plus, generally speaking, working with recycled materials is a more expensive cost point anyway. In our own experience, most plastic manufacturers will manufacture the product, design and make the product, and then find the plastic to run through the molds. And then what we actually did was reinvent the wheel. So we designed our molds for the waste plastic back to front. In essence, what that means though is our products are a lot thicker, a lot bigger, they're more expensive to make. And so our price point's a lot harder. So in the beginning, we were often described as expensive. Having said that, we've maintained our same price point for the last 3 years when all our competitors and market entrants are seeing massive cost inflation. And so we've gradually crept back up, and our strategy has always been every time we bring out a new product, that new product doesn't incrementally jump as high as it should do, and we trim the prices back every time as we grow as a business. And that seems to be working now, where we don't really get the same, or we don't have to make the same explanations as to why the product is a bit more expensive than our competitors. So that's a real world challenge for us. But in terms of the opportunities that brings, what we find is that once you've explained that concept to somebody, and there's a lot of businesses out there now who are saying, yeah, we're sustainable and we're this and we're that, and really they haven't made a lot of changes to what they're doing. But if you can give your consumers a tangible demonstration, so for us, it's a picture of us standing on the beach in Scotland with a waste rope. Once they make that link, that they're very tied in. Then as a consumer, we've got some really loyal customers who appreciate that what you're doing. Not all of them, not all consumers, for a lot of consumers, price is the ultimate driver, but for most of our consumers, above and beyond that, when they understand the importance of what you're doing, then they become very loyal. And if you can build that loyal customer base, as we face the economic challenges that we do right now with interest rates rising and all the rest of it, then I think that's a key opportunity for small businesses.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Do you have any advice you could offer individuals with sustainable business ideas?
Yeah, definitely go. I always say go for it. We just had a chat off camera about failure, and we shouldn't be scared of it. But we didn't wake up one morning and understand how to make a plant pot from 100% rope and fishing net. It's been a real journey of small steps, and every time. So to give you an idea, up until very recently, recyclers wouldn't put beach material through the recycling plant because that recycling plant is so expensive that the risk of damage to machinery. But I quality control the material, so we built up a level of trust with that recycler. And I said to them, look, the material that you're getting off the beaches is cleaner than the material that comes from the harbour. So we tentatively did 1 tonne, and then from there we built that on. The colour of our product is derived from the colour of the raw material because we sort it 1 tonne at a time. So we diverted waste material from Inverness, and initially we could create a grey pellet, but now by every step of learning, we've now got a pellet that comes out in yellow, green, blue, and then all the beach material goes grey because all the colours mix together. But that's been an evolution step by step. We're the only people on the market that have a pellet that generates a matte. So our products are matte in colour. Polypropylene is always high gloss. It's kind of shiny plastic, and ours is flat matte texture, which nobody else seems to have either. And it's to do with the recycling process as well. But all of that was a step forward every time. And I would say to all startup companies and anybody on here now I've spent like hundreds of days standing on trade stands speaking to your customer, because the customer will tell you what they want. And my passion is about the raw material. I'm less focused on the end product. I want to try and make the best product possible, but ultimately the consumers will tell you what they want, and so you need to address those consumer needs, and that's the way that we've led our design. So yeah, that's the best advice I can give any startup.
Yeah. And I guess what also you were saying there was highlighting what's the USP, what's the unique selling point for your product. If anybody's developing something, what's the USP that they're going to use? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell our customers that came from Ulva Beach last year. We did one ton off the beach. It took 5 days to collect it. We've just done a project 4 weeks ago where we recycled. It's the first time it's ever been done, but we recycled 2 tons of rope and fishing net collected from 6 Scottish islands. So the communities of Egg, Muck, Rum, Canna, Coll and Skye did beach cleaning events. All that material was taken to Malig Harbour. We worked with the Skye community and Malig Harbour to sort the material, and it'll be recycled. And then the concept is to take that pot and put it back into a gift shop in each one of those islands, which generates a revenue for the islanders using a waste material that threatened their tourism. That concept has never been done before, and we should have it done by September. Yeah. So, but then what we do then is, and this is another part of our future business, is that we get inundated with requests to speak to school and education. Part of our company ethos is growing awareness of plastic pollution. And so when you go into a classroom and speak to children and you say, I used to be a deep sea diver, this is a plant pot, let me explain net zero to you. You've got them hooked then. They're really interested. It's a great educational tool. This pot here actually came from the beach out the front of your school there. And so that's the next sort of one of the avenues that the business is looking at is education.
Super. Really good. It's interesting there, you're talking about the islands there, and we've had a question in actually from someone. Are there any specific, this is probably more for Lauren and Eva as a question, are there any specific resources or initiatives for islands like Shetland, for example, who rely on imports, have higher energy needs and higher levels of fuel poverty? Are we aware of anything specific for island communities like Shetland? Eva or Lauren?
I believe so. The way Business Energy Scotland works is that we have regional advisors around the country. I'm based in Glasgow, so most of my engagement comes through Glasgow City Council, the Glasgow Chamber. My colleague who works up in the north of Scotland in Inverness does work closely with Shetland Island councils. And I believe there are some specific funding streams and resources available through the local authority. Don't quote me on that 100%, but it is something that we try to do where possible. As much as we are involved with the SME interest-free loan scheme, if there are other opportunities that the regional advisor has knowledge of, they will point you in the right direction to access them. And so long as you're not trying to fund the same project from 2 different pots, you can combine sources of funding as well. So that's something that we would look at with individuals when they contact us. I don't have any robust information on what's available there right now, but happy to help afterwards.
Okay, thanks for that, Eva. How can small businesses effectively integrate renewable energy sources into their operations to work towards achieving net zero? And again, Eva, I'm looking to you for that one.
Sure. Renewables wise, they can be incredibly effective, as we all know, at reducing carbon emissions as well as energy costs, but only if they've been installed in the right environment. So for low carbon heating systems like heat pumps, it's not always a straightforward case of just removing the fossil fuel heating system and plugging in a renewable one. Those sorts of systems, as one example, will operate at lower temperatures over longer periods of time, and they will require a good level of insulation. And the heating pattern of the organisation is also something that would need to be considered in that situation. The support that we provide at Business Energy Scotland would provide a holistic review of the business, from the building fabric to the operations, to understand the best package of improvements and help businesses determine a critical path of where to start. There is a risk of looking at things in isolation, but we need to look at the big picture. It's not going to save anyone any energy if we put a renewable system in the wrong situation. They're not cheap. There is financial support available. The Scottish Government currently offer grants of up to 75%, a maximum of £10,000, towards renewable heating systems, and if there are further improvements that would be required to make those feasible for a business, then there is also support available for those improvements, primarily things like insulation. Again, for the other side of renewable energy, everyone or almost everyone uses electricity, and as we've seen, unit prices are very volatile at the moment. Some people have seen 300% increases in cost. So microgeneration, or producing your own electricity, is going to reduce your reliance on your supplier, especially in rural or off-grid areas. That's essential. It will reduce the amount of energy that you need to buy and save money. And any surplus energy that you produce can either be fed back into the grid, whereby your installer, or rather your energy supplier, would pay you an agreed amount for that as an income, or you can store it in a battery to support overnight operations if your business uses energy throughout the night. Solar energy is the most popular and generally the most straightforward microgeneration system to install, but some sites will be suitable for things like wind turbines, micro hydro systems, and a lot more. And we can offer that free consultancy support to determine the suitability, potential costs and potential savings of those systems. We can help you find accredited contractors to get quotes, support you in applying for the funding. We can provide training if perhaps your business is interested in something like a heat pump, but you're not really sure if it would be appropriate or sure how it would work. We can provide training for staff on that as well. And if necessary, if there are challenges to get senior managers to buy into these projects, we're happy to come along and present to them and support that business case. But we find ourselves doing that a lot less these days because the case for a lot of these things speaks for itself. It's self-explanatory. So yeah, great opportunities there for small businesses to integrate renewables, but it's about thinking about the bigger picture as well and making sure they go in the right environment to achieve those savings.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's interesting you touched there on getting buy-in. We've got a question in from someone who sees lots of green directors supporting net zero, but how do they get their management teams to embrace going green? Lauren, any thoughts on that?
Yes, so we speak to a lot of businesses who face similar things. You know, you've got that one manager who is leading the way, but how do you get everyone else, you know, on board? How do you get everyone else to follow, you know, new policies within the office or facility, etc. So I think for us, it's about kind of helping them kind of do training. So for example, the Business in Scotland Green Champions training to get everyone on that kind of same baseline of understanding, but also encouraging them to potentially kind of create kind of a green champion team within the organisation. So someone from each department, for example, is part of that green champions team, and to kind of allow everyone to kind of have a say or provide ideas about what they would like to do, potentially within their office or, you know, or within their organisation, to make sure that everyone is involved, everyone is enabled to get feedback. You know, we think we should do X, Y, Z. What does everyone think in your departments? But also to allow that organisation to have that ripple down effect in terms of what is happening within a net zero strategy, for example. How does that then apply to your department, and whether you're a small organisation or kind of a larger SME? So I would always say kind of make sure that you do get buy-in from everyone, and that can be slightly challenging at times. But I think if you go down the route of kind of creating a Green Champions team, making sure that kind of each department has a seat at the table, and also providing kind of training for everyone, I think that is really key to kind of then get everyone on the same page.
Brilliant. Thanks, Lauren. Ali, can I ask you, what practices do you think businesses could implement to effectively measure and track their progress in reducing their carbon footprint?
I think mileage, first and foremost, is a good indicator. So if you start to actively log deliveries, for instance, you know, double handling, that kind of thing, then you can track month on month how efficient you're becoming, whether you can change an electric van, sorry.
Yeah.
The other thing you can do is what we did is, so we use a pallet network, but we deliver plastic free. and so we exchanged our polythene wrap for sugarcane wrap. You can measure the quantities of, so if you work with big suppliers, you get a set of directions as to how you must deliver the product, and it must be packed, palletized and stuff. But you can swap out and exchange the waste, so polythene wrap for sugarcane wrap, and you can measure the savings that you're making in terms of diverted waste from landfill, because ultimately it's going to be landfilled at the other end, probably. Those kinds of things.
Okay, can I be slightly challenging on that one?
Yeah, sure.
How do you do then, just for argument's sake, the whole life costing of the polythene wrap versus sugarcane wrap? Because that sugarcane wrap, now I'm listening to what you've just said, I'm presuming that's a raw material that's got, I can't remember seeing much in the way of sugar plantations around Central Belt, so that must be coming from a distance.
It's a biodegradable wrap.
Yeah.
So it's fully compostable at the end of its life, as opposed to diverting. So you're diverting a waste from landfill in that effect.
Yeah.
Although it needs to be composted under commercial conditions.
Right. Okay.
When you're dealing with polythene wrap, it's something we started to look at on a massive scale for, like, we're a small business, but on a big retailer scale, those savings become pretty enormous.
Yeah.
What you should really do, actually, and the new concept coming in, is that retailers should look to identify plastic waste within the supply chain that goes to landfill, and they should recycle it and put it back into store as a new product. Because if you've got existing products in store made from virgin plastic, you should be exchanging them out for waste arisings generated in store, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Eva, any thoughts on that, about what practices business can implement to measure? You're on mute, Eva.
Apologies, I'm surprised that's the first time that's happened so far in this past hour. I would say the Green Champions course is an excellent place to start, because it goes through all of these individual skills, and there are lots of online resources available from us, whether that be spreadsheets for tracking things or formulas for making calculations. So I think that's a good free resource that anyone can access, pending they apply and sign up to the Green Champions. They'll have access to all of that.
Okay, well, really helpful.
It's
Okay,
part
I'm
of
very
the,
conscious. Oh, sorry, Eva, on you go.
No, I was just going to say, when we're talking about getting management buy-in, I think sometimes this is the problem. The business case might be there, but perhaps it's just the information hasn't been presented in such a way that makes the case strong. So having all of the information and then translating that into something that makes a strong business argument is often crucial in getting senior management buy-in.
Grand. Thanks, Eva. I'm very conscious of time. We have a few minutes left, 3 minutes left. The last kind of point here, I guess, very quick answers, brief answers from everyone would be helpful in this one. And it's to do with how important do you think collaboration and partnerships are in playing a role in accelerating the transition to a sustainable net zero future? Lauren?
I think it's key. I don't believe personally that we will be able to get to net zero if we don't work with others within your industry or other businesses and working in collaboration for projects. Everything. I think it helps with knowledge share, best practice, and I always recommend to businesses, collaborate where you can, see the opportunities, because you just never know where those opportunities may lead to.
Okay, Ali, quick thoughts on that?
Quick one is, personally, collaboration does slow down the decision-making process because it becomes protracted sometimes. And so I'm not personally a huge fan of collaboration all the time, because we like to be quick and lean and first to market. But having said that, when we have not necessarily collaborated, but finding a mentor is really important. And so we've found, we've made some big changes when we've worked with a really big company in a slightly different field, so we're not a competitor. We've developed a good relationship with them, and then they've imparted some of their suppliers' knowledge. That's how we found our packaging manufacturer in Glasgow. And so learning from a new startup, learning from a slightly bigger company is probably good advice as well.
And I'm very conscious of time. I'm going to have to call a halt to this. Thank you all for your time today. That's been absolutely brilliant. Fascinating to hear the support that's available. Fascinating to hear your story, Ali. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you to everyone who's joined us today. I hope you've been able to take something away from this and that it's given you some inspiration about what you can do in your journey to support that whole drive for net zero. Thanks very much. We'll see you all again. Take care.